All right, everybody. Thank you for coming. Can you hear me? All right. Sorry for the wake up call. All right. But anyways, um, first of all, I want to thank you all to be here tonight. It's really good to bring the community together. We all know what soccer is all about. Is bringing people together. Um, Better than that, bringing this panel of people that are experts and spend their lives or spend their years talking about soccer and doing soccer stuff. It is pretty cool. For anybody that's here that doesn't know what the striker is, which I think you all do know what the striker is, but we started in Texas, covering soccer in Texas, all levels of soccer. We expanded to Southern California at the beginning, at mid-year, and Atlanta, and we're ready to expand even more. So for that, and because we believe that soccer is a community product, is a community. Um, um, it's owned by the community. It's from the community for the community. We opened and a possibility of everybody to be able to own and help us shape the voice of soccer in the U.S. So you are able from now on, from as little as $250, to invest in the striker and be owner of the striker. And our next steps are expanding to different markets in the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. We want to cover Liga Max in English that nobody does. We think that that's going to be a big thing moving forward. But better than that is we can only do that with you guys, with the support of the community, and we believe that this is going to grow very big until 2026 when we're going to be hosting the World Cup here in the Americas. So huge opportunity for all of us. And again, I can't say it how much it is important to have the support of you. So if you can invest as little as 250, doesn't matter. If you want to do more, better. But if you want to do 250 just to be part of this, we want you to do it. And make sure that you tell your friends and even people that don't necessarily like soccer, this is a good investment opportunity. Okay? All right. So I'll start, I'll get over so they can talk about soccer a little bit more. I'm going to introduce one person and then he's going to take over. Phil West, most of you also know. Phil has a huge history with soccer, has written several books about the sport. We're fortunate enough to have him as our managing editor. Joined us, was already with us from the start, I think, right, Phil? Writing some articles from the beginning, but joined us as our managing editor several months ago. And today, besides doing this for us, it's also his birthday, literally today. So I was actually going to do this at the end of the night, but I'll do it in the beginning of the night.
What do you do?
Just so we. And I come from Brazil, and in Brazil, reporters are not allowed kind of to say the teams that they're fans of because of the conflict of interest. I don't think Phil hides that from anybody that is an Austin FC fan. So, Phil, this is just a little thing for you.
Enough to do that.
I hope you enjoy it. I think you're gonna like it.
Such a dude way to wrap a present.
All right, take over, man.
Thank you all for coming to my birthday party. Uh, Here, we have a really great panel here for you. I'm going to start this in the way that I usually start things that I do soccer related. Then we're just going to go down the line. We'll introduce our panelists, and then we'll get into some questions that I prepared. And then you have the opportunity to ask some questions at the end as well. So, in my spirit, as I usually do, hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to our panel. All right, so we'll just go down the line here, starting with Hernan. Explain who you are and what you're doing here and all that.
Hey y'all. Test. Hey y'all. Can you hear me? Everybody hear me? So pretty much what I do is a lot of you might see my face on YouTube. I run probably, I'd say, the biggest fan channel. We're independent, not affiliated with the club, but we run, we're Austin TV. We also have a podcast called Top Flight. And pretty much what our mission is and what our mission has been since day one is to try to capture the raw fan emotion leaving Q2, because that's something very special. And it only lasts like a good maybe 15, 20 minutes. That euphoria of you leaving that stadium, either you're really happy, you're really sad, or maybe you're in the middle because it could be like a draw. But that's what me and my team do.
Yeah, that is the current spaces have been like a really great. If there's like a win or a really terrible loss, I just look on Twitter for them to pop in and start doing their thing, and it's a good time. It's like that's kind of the town square where people go with the pitchforks or with the celebratory pints after a match.
That's accurate. Very accurate.
Okay, Katie.
Yeah, so I'm Katie Goodman. I work in radio, ESPN San Antonio radio. I have a show on the weekends. I'm also their in-house soccer analyst. So that's kind of how I got involved with covering Austin FC. I also cover San Antonio FC, and I do a lot of different things. I'm very busy. So, broadcast GA at UIW. I work on a Texas travel show, but heart really lies with soccer. So anything soccer in Texas, I'll be there.
Yeah, and Katie will fight traffic to get up and it's been a good portion of the year, which has been awesome. She's asked some really great questions, been a great presence, and it's been awesome to have her in the mix. Landon.
Hello, I'm Landon Cottom. I am one of the hosts of Moon Tower Soccer, which is a podcast that covers Austin FC. Me and Hernan kind of do like the opposite of each other. They catch the fan reactions immediately, get everyone while they're all worked up. Me and my co-host Jeremiah, who's at a junior high band concert at the moment, we wait a few days and try to explain the game in as logical of a manner as possible. And so we've been doing it for a few years now. I think maybe 4 years now. Did it for a couple of years before the team even started. And so people ask, like, are y'all going to be doing it in the off season? Like, are y'all going to take a break? And it's like, no, the off season is when we thrive. We're at our best in the off season. So yeah, check us out at Moon Tower Soccer on all of the internets.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's great listening. It's about 3 dog walks per episode. That's how I measure podcasts. So that's what I do. It's a fine companion now, but I'm also I'm teaching in San Antonio on Wednesday afternoons now. So it's also like 2/3 of a drive to San Antonio, as I found out. So Sonny, finally, last but not least, let's talk to you about what you do and how you've been involved.
Thank you. My name's Sonny Guadarrama. I'm the Spanish soccer analyst for Austin FC, or was, because it's going to Apple. So that was not my choice. I also have my own school called SGA Academy. So when I say school, it's an actual school where kids go to school and do math and science and English, but it's geared towards soccer. So every day the kids are out there training soccer, and our goal is to give kids just more opportunities that love the game of soccer. So those are my 2 things. Former player, played in Liga MX. First game, November 6th of 2006, Santos Laguna versus Pachuca, and played for Morelia, Atlante, Necaxa, Dorados, and Merida. Came back, played for SAFC, played for Austin Bold, and now I'm the analyst. So thank you guys.
All right. So obviously we got a great panel here. So just first question I want to ask. So obviously if you saw the Striker this week, did a big 2-parter on the 10 moments that I thought defined the 2022 Austin FC season, including that one right there, the put it in the Louvre Danny Pereira goal moment against Houston Dynamo, who we beat in that game, as you know, right? So I want to ask everybody, what is your favorite personal moment of the season? So a moment that stands out to you in particular. And Hernan, we'll start with you.
I'm going to have to go with, let's see, my favorite moment of the season has to be whenever I'm going to go with that game. Danny Pereira scoring his fantastic goal. That was his first goal too. So it was absolutely magical seeing him get his goal. I got to meet him at the Fairmont in 2021. So seeing him finally celebrate with us, him getting his goal, and then it later making it to the Louvre.
The Louvre, yeah.
That was fantastic. And also, beating Houston, him getting a goal in that derby game in Houston at PNC, it was just great.
Yeah, and you had a pretty wild post game,
Yeah, the fans almost got ran over in the parking lot, actually. So that was wild.
and people were doing shots out of Pollo.
Out of Pollo.
Shot out of
His dad ex-agent too.
Katie, what about you?
It's impressive. I for me, it's a toss up between the second LAFC game and the most recent FC Dallas game because they were both really complete matches. I think it was a big deal for them to beat LAFC twice and in such a quality way. But with FC Dallas, there's a lot of people rooting against them on that one, and just because of their performance versus RSL. And I think everybody could see a lot of really clear breakdowns, and it was a lot of basics that they needed to fix, and they did exactly that. And they came out and they made it a good one. It was a big win at home. I mean, you're there in the stadium in a playoff match. I just think it hit a little bit different for me on that one. And of course, they took down Dallas, so that was finally,
Landon, what about you?
Yeah, I have to second Katie there. The Dallas game in the playoffs was really, really great. Mainly because I was like terrified that we were going to lose the game, and so then to come out and just like thoroughly take them apart was really, really nice. So that was, I think, my most fun experience in the stands for sure.
Yeah, are there any Dora the Explorer fans in here? 'Cause I'm about to do the Dora line. I like that too. You guys know that. Sonny, what about you?
It was a long season, so there's a lot of good moments. I think winning Copa Texas, first trophy, was important. I think for the team morale, but probably the first two games of the season, because as fans, like soccer fan myself, kind of weary of what our team was actually gonna look like after the first year that they had, and kind of nervous and all the players that came in and how was that gonna look like, and coming out and really just putting on two solid performances. The amount of goals that they were scoring, I think, just kind of drove the team and that confidence that they needed to start on a high note.
Yeah, because I mean that first game was such an unknown. I mean, it was Cincinnati, who had been historically bad, but we didn't know how Austin was going to be. It was 37 degrees. It was freezing rain. Yeah, it was just I had no idea going in what that was going to be like. Couldn't feel my feet in the press box, but at the end of it, it was like, yeah, this team might be something this year. So yeah, that was awesome. All right, so next question I had was just what did covering Austin FC this season mean for you? And of course, we all covered it in very sort of different ways, but Renan, go ahead. Why don't you start?
Definitely. This season meant a lot for us because we really saw growth in the page, because obviously the success that Austin FC had translated with ours also. We had multiple fans from all over the league either trash talk us because they wanted us to lose, or we either lost that game. We weren't perfect this season, but we also had a lot of positive interaction with multiple fans from all over this league, because Austin FC was so good, and because we had a lot of admiration from all over. We beat DC 3-2. Fans said, hey, you guys have something special. We smacked LA twice. They said, hey, you guys have something special. All over the league, they were giving us props. So for sure, it was great covering this team in year two and interacting with everybody that was showing us respect and giving us props and telling us that we have something special to keep believing, keep pushing. That's how I saw this season covering it.
Katie.
Man, this season I feel like meant everything for me. As also a former player, it just felt really good to get back to being around the game and, interviewing these players who you can kind of relate to them based on breakdowns or successes, and just going through the process and the emotions, the highs, the lows with them, learning to ask better questions throughout the process, and then just my network personally just expanding as a result of being around all these amazing people and awesome podcasts going on. It's a really small world, the American soccer world, and so I feel like it's a lot easier to kind of meet people and chat, and I think for me, who is still kind of newer in my career, I would, I'm looking at, the positive takeaways from this year. And I feel like I just gained a lot of traction this year, and that I'm just really excited for next season. I'm already ready for it to start. And I was lucky enough to be able to cover both Austin and San Antonio. And so it was kind of funny being on San Antonio radio, talking about both Austin and San Antonio. San Antonio got a lot of flack for that. But I also think I brought a lot of people to the light of understanding, like, hey, Texas soccer is Texas soccer, and we're all really good out here, from Austin to San Antonio, even up to Dallas. So, yeah, I think, like I said, it meant everything for me. Yeah. Not all the way to Frisco is what he said. Great joke. Love it.
I mean, my favorite part of all of this is and always has been just the community that's kind of popped up around all of it. I found my people in this town because of this team. And so, like, I think having gone through such a bad season last year and then getting to have a good season this year and celebrate it with all the people who suffered together last year was really great. So I think just like, yeah, just the people that we got to spend time with and celebrate the juxtaposition of these two seasons together was really, really nice.
Yeah, and then Sonny.
For us, I think it was expect the unexpected. Throughout every single game, you could never really predict what was going to happen. The team looked like they were playing terrible. Final 20 minutes, we end up winning the game.
Boom, GJ hat trick.
Exactly. Or the team looks like they're playing really great soccer in the first half, and the second half, it's just like, what is this the same team that I was just watching the first half? So for us, it was hard to predict what was actually gonna happen. The lineups were difficult to choose. Sometimes we didn't see eye to eye with Josh Wolf on things and what we thought players were doing well, and then all of a sudden, not in the lineup. So for us, it was clearly just wait till the last second to know exactly what's going on, who the lineup's going to be. And then during the game, I think it makes MLS exciting is that there's not one team that, besides LAFC, that kind of just went through and won every game, but anybody could beat anybody, could be the lowest team, could come in and beat the highest ranked team. So it makes for good soccer, but for us, just, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I think just, obviously with the striker and expanding to LA and Atlanta and broadening the community that way was really special to me. But at the same time, being part of this really, really amazing season that had, I mean, definitely, there were some lows. There was that last game. There was a 3-game losing streak, but there were just so many highs. And just, for example, that second LAFC game, that one here in August, was just tremendous. We had Benjamin Verhen, our LAFC beat writer, and I was like over in that corner interviewing Pollo post-match, and it was just so euphoric, and it was just so much fun to just have all this energy and all this excitement around the team. And we'll get a little bit more here in a second into the fan engagement question, because I thought there were some really interesting things that happened here in the second season for Austin FC. But it was a joy. I mean, at times it was really long. I remember after the Red Bulls game, we go down to the press box and there's a sign that says, they do this for every game. It's a New York Red Bulls, and it was like game 22 of 34, and it's like, oh my God, there have been so many games, and there are still like so many games to go. It just feels like such a marathon. It's so long, but at the same time, it's just there's so much rich narrative that happened with this team this year, and it became, in a way, like, I mean, it's not ever easy really to cover this, but the narratives were there. It wasn't like the last half of 2021 where it's just here's another game of suck, and here's us having to go through this press conference and ask these questions, and it all kind of felt a little samey. But this year definitely had a lot more character, a lot more verve to it, and it was so much fun to cover. So I want to get into this. So what did you notice about fan engagement this season compared to last? And Hernan, you are perhaps the best person to ask this, but we're going to ask everybody. But you were up close and personal with a lot of folks.
A little too close sometimes. Definitely. But one thing that I noticed about fan engagement was that last season it was split. There was wolf out cries, there was trust the process words that were being put out there. So there was a bit of a split. But this season, what I saw definitely was that everybody kind of came together. There was a big group saying, "Hey, we have to trust this guy. We have to back this whole system that they have gave us." I mean, we have Claudio Reyna backing this guy, Josh Wolf. I mean, that's a big name in this whole league. So really just the confidence, way more confidence in this fan base, the ability to talk smack to another fan base also without, I mean, with the ability of having the stats and the wins and the points to back it up. Definitely the confidence this season was at an all-time high, all the way to the end.
Yeah, the smack talking this year is a little bit better than, we're 12th, we're 13th.
I was just gonna say the same thing. For me, it's like the loyalty of the fans was next level. I mean, attacking other MLS reporters and whatnot. I mean, you gotta hand it to the fans. Like they holding stuff down for Austin FC. But yeah, that and then also just the fans that were picked up, overseas and even in other MLS markets. I mean, I think Austin just kind of was a really fun team to follow. And so like not only was the stadium obviously more packed out, like the stats show that too, but I think just across the board they really made a name for themselves and fans kind of came through for it.
Landon?
Oh man. Yeah, I think to go off of Hernan's point, like to have the fans, like for the most part, there's still moments through the season where people are questioning things or whatever, but last year was rough, and to have everybody for most of the year just be like, yeah, we believe in this, and like we think that for the most part everyone's doing a pretty good job. And just I don't know, it's like it was a lot more fun to cover this team and to be a part of the community when the team is good.
Yeah. What about you, Sonny?
It's harder to set forth and have to answer while everyone gives their answers.
What
But
he said.
I think I think Austin FC as an organization does a great job of providing a platform for off-field, I wouldn't call it events, but just making sure that while the camera's on, the stadium just looks like it looks fun. And when you're in the stadium, it's fun. So they do a good job. And then I think the people of Austin have really just wrapped their whole being around Austin FC. And I think it's a team that most MLS, like other markets, like dream of having the fan base that we have. And the fact that they're singing the whole game and that we take up a huge chunk of that backside for our supporter section. So like as a player, going and seeing that and hearing the team, and I can't remember who Drusy scored against in the last minute to score Casey. It sounded so loud that I bet for a good 5-10 mile radius, people could hear how loud the stadium had got, because everybody was just they were into the game and it was intense. And then he scores at the end. Of course, he was going to score. If it was anybody, it was going to be him. So I think a lot of teams are jealous, really, on how Austin FC was able to capture this kind of environment.
Yeah, that's been amazing.
I want to change my favorite moment of the season to
Okay,
that.
sure. That was a good one. I like that too. Yeah.
It does remind me, like in the beginning of the season, I remember going to a game. It was super cold. I was freezing, and I couldn't believe that there were fans out there after what the result from last season. And then that kind of gave me hope. I'm like, oh, Austin, we all know Austin is a soccer city, but I feel like for me that really validated. And
Yeah, I mean, I noticed a lot more casual fans this year too. There were a lot of people who referred to them as the FC. I don't know if you've heard that, but I thought that was kind of funny. And it's also, I want to face palm, but I'm also like, yeah, they're
it's taking on like
exactly, yeah,
it's what we wanted to happen. Right?
Exactly,
like,
yeah, for sure, yeah.
The city in a way that nobody controls and nobody's
Absolutely,
stating.
yeah. Don't gatekeep that. It's like, yeah, if you want to call it the FC, go. You do that. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, we'll be in the press box for a lot of the games, but a number of us will actually go out to the fancy porch for the first half and just sitting out there and just looking over at the supporter section and Wolf of Wall Street, and then all right, and just those first few moments is just this kind of amazing calm and joy washes over me. Like, I don't know what's going to happen in the match, but just to see that's happened and that's grown and that's been such a part of the culture, and it's there and it's endemic. It's amazing. Like LAFC fans will talk about, oh yeah, 3-2-5-2, all that. It's like, yeah, second best fans in the league. Cool. Do your thing. So, all right. So what off-season move are you rooting for? And this is the if I could Freaky Friday myself with Claudio Reyna question. So, Hernan, what are you looking for?
Get into specifics with names. Obviously, it's very tough trying to pinpoint it down like that. All I know is that we have a good amount of money. We have 1.9 in Gamma and TAM that we had freed up. What I'm looking for this offseason, what I'd really like Austin FC to strengthen at least, is that center back position. I mean, we have Julio Cascante. He honestly has one mistake in him every 3 games. It's never really safe with him. Ruben Gabrielson, he's probably one of the best center backs. If we can get another Ruben, I know we have Kip Keller, and he needs his chance. He's one of those young guys that is going to get his moment here soon. But if we can strengthen that back line, we win a lot more games that we could have won this season, and we might even have beaten LAFC, dare I say. I don't know. But defense for sure.
I'm going to second that, especially in the center back position. But for me, it's both center backs. I feel like they both have had their drawbacks this season. And as a center back, you pretty much have to be the player with the highest IQ. You have to be the quickest. You have to be able to read the back line, fill the spaces where you need to fill them. And I feel like in both cases, there are a lot of times where they weren't doing that. Now, if you also look at the other part of the back line, Gallagher, I feel like at times would not tuck in the way that I would have liked him to. Of course, he's an offensive player, so naturally he's going to get up in the attack, and he helps with those transitions. And I think there's still, you can make a case for Gallagher. I know he signed again, but I think, there were a lot of issues, and sometimes it would start with Gallagher, other times it would start with Cascante, other times Gabrielson, and I think a little bit of healthy competition could definitely help them there in the center back position for sure. And yeah, that's all I got.
Landon, I know you have a name.
Yeah, I'll name names.
Go.
This is a thing where, so the center back position it's one of these moments where like just a center back. I know last year a lot, like throughout most of the season, in a lot of positions, was like just somebody who can play in this position. It's not the case now. We need to upgrade, and it's hard to find upgrades at center back. But one guy who is one of the best in the league and is a free agent at the moment is Alexander Collins from NYCFC. Half the league, anybody who has enough money is going to be going after the guy. And so I'm not going to hold my breath for it, but Claudio Reyna should count as much money as Austin has and give it all to him if we can.
And who, what is the connection between Claudio Reyna and Alex Collins?
Well, he brought Collins in at NYCFC, so there is a relationship. I don't know if they like each other or not. I hope
so.
I would hope they do. But, he at least has his number. And so we'll see, but that's the one.
That's half the battle, right?
There's a million center backs available, right? But I don't know that many of them make us better, and he would.
I think so too. Yeah, Sonny.
Just agree with us.
What about the attack?
No,
Where do you think
yeah.
we could strengthen the attack?
The attack, I would say I would want somebody who's fast. So I think we have a lot of players that like the ball at their feet, but we don't have anybody that likes to run in behind anybody. And at times teams would just sit in, and we couldn't counter really because we don't have anybody who's fast enough to even counter. We all have players that like to play, which is fine. But at some point, I think some speed kills because you can't really defend speed. You're either faster than the guy and you're going to get to the ball before him, or you're not as fast and we have no surprise over the top. So somebody who has some speed. And I would also throw in outside backs that I felt like our team would have more chances to create more if our outside, they have just a ton of time on the ball. Can we get outside backs that want to go forward more and create more problems? Because teams will just sit back and make it difficult for us.
Yeah, I know we were for a while thinking about, Anton Tinnerholm too, but it sounds like he's going to go back to Sweden. But another NYCFC player might be leaving who's an outside back who I think would have been a pretty good candidate for that. So there's two new players that just came out today. So that was interesting. One happened when we were getting ready for this. So we'll get a story up tomorrow, I think, for that. But we had one up now. So with the offers to take the reentry draft. So obviously Sebastian Driussi, absolutely amazing season. He is the source of some transfer rumors. So just wanted to ask everybody, is he staying? Is he going? And how do you feel about that? So maybe a sore subject, but we're all friends here. It's something we have to talk about. So Hernan, what do you think?
Well, some people tell me some things and positive things about Driussi. The information I can share is that he's making some home improvements, some big improvements to his house. So there's no way this guy's leaving. You know what I'm saying? Whenever you make a big change to your home, you're most likely going to be there for a while.
Pool? Is this a pool? Is this a bathroom reno?
Information I cannot share. The what's for him? Transfer market updated his value, I think November 8th at 15 mil. So, I mean, just being real, whenever Anthony Precourt and his partners see an offer like that, whenever you invested $7 million of your own money, you get a $15 million offer, you have to think maybe once or twice, like, hey, should we do this? Are we going to get another opportunity to maybe make a sale like this? And one more thing, we mentioned this on the podcast. I want to send a shout out to my boy B. He said that the league might be hinting or pushing Austin FC to make this sale because it would make the MLS look absolutely fantastic if we can send a player from the MLS to Leeds. And if they could secure their status in the Premier League, the MLS can pretty much say, hey, we're sending players to the EPL, one of the biggest leagues in the world. It'll be good for MLS. I don't know if Leeds really needs him, though. So that's all I have to say.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for all that info. This is good, especially the home renovation part. That's solid. Katie, what do you think?
Yeah, good stuff. You know, obviously I don't want him to go. Like, I don't know what else to say other than that I don't want him to, but of course there's always a chance. The question is, will they pay 15 million, for him to produce overseas? And will he want to go somewhere where he's not a potential MVP as well? That's another question. But I think anything is possible if the number's right and if the team is right and if that's who he's interested in. But again, I don't have any real serious opinion other than I would like him to stay in Austin. That's all I got.
Yeah, you touched on the number that it is. I think that's going to be the biggest question here. The sense that I get, I don't know the man personally, but the sense that I get is that he's happy here. I don't know that he's going to be the one to be pushing the club, find me somewhere to move. But if the right number comes in and the club is like, oh, this number's too high to say no to, and it's in the Premier League, it's the right situation, like Katie was saying, I don't know that Driussi's going to turn that down. A guy in the prime of his career, he'll take that opportunity. So I'm going to say no, he's not going to go, because just looking at Tati Castellanos from, again, NYCFC, we keep talking about them, but they wanted 15 million for him and couldn't get him. This is a guy who's younger than Driussi, who was MVP level performance for the first half of the season, and they couldn't get that money for him. They ended up loaning him to a sister club essentially. And so if you're not getting 15 for that guy, I don't know that you're getting 15 for Driussi, and I don't know that they're going to sell him for any less than that.
Tati went to Girona in Spain, not doing so well.
Well, that's another thing too. Like if you go over, it's the 100% success. Look at Pepe, with Augsburg, right? He had to go to Groningen and start scoring goals again. Sonny, what do you think on this matter, this important matter?
I just think it depends on Driussi's ambition, what his goals are. If he feels like he can still make the Argentinian national team, he's going to have to leave the MLS essentially, because they're not going to turn really to the MLS to find players for their national team. I think personally he's good enough to play anywhere. You could put him on any field and he would be perfectly fine and create chances and do the things that he loves to do. I don't see any problem in doing that. If the price was right, I would sell him and get 3 more players. You could basically get 3 players of really great quality for Driussi. And I think you could bolster up the team with not spending any of your money.
Yeah, if they're scouted right,
whoever brought Driussi knows how to pick them. Just Driussi.
Right.
To be clear.
So whatever you did there, do that again.
The point that I made on the podcast the other day is that, okay, we sell Driussi. We can't then, because of MLS rules, you can't just go sign 3 Driussis with the money, right? Because we already have all 2 DP spots. So we'd be able to fill 1 DP spot. But going back to Alexander Collins, if we didn't have enough money to sign him, when we sign Driussi, then we do have enough money, right? We have as much as anybody's going to in the league at that point. So, it wouldn't be entirely negative.
And with Pochettino, we actually have 3 DPs if Driussi leaves, and we still have to figure out what to do about that.
This is a good question. Who thinks Pochettino will ever wear an Austin FC jersey again?
I hope not.
I don't think you will.
Not as a DP.
I don't think so either. But again, that's a whole big question. Where does he go? Who decides to do that? All right. So one more question that I've got, and then we're gonna open up questions to y'all. Anybody who wants to ask anything, we are more than happy to answer that. Who is your favorite Austin FC player and why?
I mean, it's kind of easy. It's very obvious. It's going to be Drusy for sure. Got to be Drusy. But I'm going to go with something less obvious. I'm going to go with Fagundes because he's been here since day one. Fagundes is the heart and spirit of this Austin FC team. Drusy got the goals. Drusy got the goals. But if you look at the numbers, you got to look at the assists. Who was getting those assists? Fagundes ended the season with like 16 or 17. He was fantastic. I mean, he just has that garra charrua, as they say, Uruguayo. He goes 90 minutes, and you got to give him his credit. Fagundes for me.
I'm gonna go with Stu, the obvious one. He's a man of the people, always giving his money away and just a family man. I think he's also very charismatic, easy to interview, which is great for a first-time person interviewing people. That's the person you want to go for. But also Danny Pereira. He was one of my very first interviews ever. I used to have a podcast, and very hard to talk to, but on the field, he is fantastic. I think he just gives so much heart. You can see he's just covering all corners of the field as much as he can. And so I don't know. I think, I do have a little special place in my heart there for Danny too, but Danny and Stu, some of my faves.
My pick is Ruben. Yeah. Yeah, she's number one fan right there. He's just been was really good on the field, and so a lot of fun to watch. But also off the field, he's just like really funny and kind of a weirdo, which I truly appreciate. In a like, I'm not even say like a team or the sport, but just like athletes in general tend to be like a little bit boring. No offense, Sonny. And not you.
Everybody, but
But Ruben is just like really funny and really entertaining all the time, and so I really appreciate that.
they said all the answers. There's not one left. As for the kids, since I work with kids all the time, Stuver is definitely a big. I think a lot of kids want to play goalie now, just because they see Stuver playing. You see a lot more kids like, I want to play goalie. Why? Well, because I see Stuver doing it, and kids will make a save, and all the other kids will be like, Stuver. So that goes on in like youth soccer world right now. It's because of him. People are in love with the position to play goalie.
That's so great. Yeah. The other thing too about Stuver, I mean, I'm also a big Stuver fan club person here. He's so cerebral. He's so thoughtful. Just his insights into the game are fascinating. There was a press conference, I think kind of like early in the year, where he just came in and he was just giving this kind of clinic about everything that they were doing. It was fascinating. We were just like all just wrapped for like, it went on for like 5-10 minutes, just this answer to this question. It was really amazing just to kind of see the insights that he was bringing to the game and all that. And then obviously, yeah, big Fagundes fan. Again, last year when things were rough and like nobody wanted to be the player in the press conference, like he would step up and do that, which I think just, speaks a lot to his heart and to his character. And then, I mean, guy played foot golf with like fans, like basically his first couple of weeks in. And that I think really, kind of solidified a lot of that connection, and he can also kick a ball through 3 trucks. So, right. So another positive. All right. So, I am out of cards. So questions from y'all, anything that you want to ask us? Go ahead.
Test.
Okay. Oh, Roberta's gonna bring a mic over. So,
hey, so there was this. It's questions about the national team, but about academies. So there was this weird, interesting segment on Football Americas where they said, interesting thing about the U.S. men's national team, there are no Mexican Americans on the national team. So the comment section on the YouTube video was a mess about woke and blah blah blah, and I thought, it's not about that at all, right? It's a sign of a different problem. It's probably by far the biggest player pool, certainly of Hispanics, right? Potential player pool. And the fact that you don't have that filtering into the national team at a representative level, I think, is evidence of the problem of pay for play and the economic inaccessibility of that system to Mexican American kids. So, Sonny, this question is kind of for you, right? How long do we have to wait for something like the academy system for MLS to kind of take over and make up for that deficit, right? And I guess maybe the first question should be, am I right about that, right? Is that evidence of this problem? Is it something else? You know, and when are we going to start punching at our weight class?
No, I'll do my best to sum it up. I think it's just that there's just a whole bunch of problems, and they're never. I don't know if they're ever going to be fixed. That the country's huge. It's hard to get kids, to capture kids, to find the kids, and I think just prior, like just Funes Mori is like a great example of him being at FC Dallas, him and his brother, and they didn't think they were good enough, and they left, and now Funes Mori is going to go to the World Cup with Mexico, and he was at FC Dallas Academy, and they were like, nah, we'll pass on him and his brother. It's just the nature of the game. It's hard to predict who is going to make it, how much resources you're going to invest. The only person that ever got it right was whoever found Messi and took him at such a young age and built him up, because it's never like that. It's hard to find kids that will just stay throughout the academy and go in. So I don't know if it's the academy's issue. It's just kids are late bloomers. There's maybe Hispanics don't hit puberty till later on, and they don't find them, because there's kids that went to no-name colleges, D1 colleges, and are now playing for America. It's like, how did we not get these kids before? What are we missing out on? I think it's just pay for play. The country's huge. Maybe Mexican Americans, at least growing up, didn't think the MLS was like as attractive as going and playing in Mexico or going and playing in Europe. Your parents grew up they didn't watch MLS soccer. Your parents, they were watching America play. They were watching Chivas play. They were watching Santos play. So that was where your brain was. You were in the Mexican soccer league. You weren't watching Dallas Burn
Sonny,
at the time.
I'm very critical of the NCAA model for a long time, and could the NCAA model that has been changed over the last few years also be an impact on that Hispanic problem that was mentioned?
Like to go to school.
Yeah, the fact that for many years you had to go to school before you went
Yeah.
pro.
So I was like at the peak. I would say I'm 35. So when I was in high school at Cedar Park High School, there wasn't any possibilities to go from high school to pro. Like that was my dream. I wanted to play pro soccer. There wasn't any avenues for us to make that jump. So the only jump was, okay, you had to go to college. But at the time, kids were starting to go to like Europe, and people were starting to say like, okay, Americans are good at soccer. Mexican Americans, any kind of Americans, they were scouting them and taking them away. So I had nowhere to go, and I had gone to a couple of teams in Mexico, didn't even get to step on the field, and I had to go to school for a year before I had an opportunity to leave, and I left as soon as I could. I didn't want to stay the 4 years because I thought I'm going to be too old to play professional soccer if I'm 22 coming out of school. There's just way too many issues. Pay to play is one of them, but it's free in the MLS. So you could say that, but how many kids from Las Vegas and Phoenix and Louisiana and Mississippi and Tennessee that are playing and they're not in MLS academies? It's hard to even find them. I have a friend, I won't take up too much time because he's saying that, but he's going to go to the World Cup with Mexico. He didn't play his first professional game till he was 24. Henry Martin is going to be the first player from Yucatan, which is a part of Mexico, going to the World Cup. And I was at Merida at the time, which is where he's from, and he was barely starting to come practice with us, and he was already in his 20s. And it's just, how did he get there? I don't know. It's just the luck of the draw. It's 1 in a billion, 1 in a trillion. And he ends up going to Cholos to America, he's going to the World Cup. And he didn't start playing his very first professional game until he's 22, 23. So it's impossible to predict. There's a million problems. Hopefully, I would say that at the end of the day, the best players, someone's going to find them, hopefully, and someone's going to give him a chance.
So on Martin, is the rumor true? Was he being courted by Austin FC?
Henry Martin?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he would be a good forward for us. I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, I think
We
that
could
was
ask him.
I think that was in play last year, and then he re-signed with America. But-
One thing on that point is there's Austin FC Academy player currently, Ervin Torres,
Oh, yeah,
who's
yeah.
been called in to both the U.S. national team camps and Mexico national team camps. And I think he's gone to both of them. And so hopefully in the next few years, we will have a Mexican American on one of those two national teams either way. So that'll be great.
Yeah, I think as the academies strengthen, more and more, and MLS grows, more and more, I think we'll see more and more of that happening. So, Lee, go ahead.
So my question's for Katie. So when Austin FC lost in the U.S. Open Cup to San Antonio, lots of Austin fans were deeply embarrassed by losing to a lower division side. I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you, was losing to, maybe for the people who don't follow USL, was losing to San Antonio FC really something to be embarrassed about?
Well, great question, because based off them just winning the final and actually being the first team in history to, for USL history to go from first in their Western Conference then to win the final, they did so many incredible things. They won 5 trophies in 1 year. I mean, they're an incredible side, and they really do need a lot more credit. Now, I do think it might have helped Austin FC going into the regular season, because I'm sure people were thinking, they can't be that great if they just lost to a USL team. But loving how you phrase that question, because they're definitely a fantastic side, and I think it was a wake up call that Austin needed as well. And I'm sure they weren't playing with their starting 11 either. And but as we've seen as time has progressed, Austin is obviously very clearly a much better side.
If you haven't seen San Antonio in the final Sunday, go back and take a look, and then you're not going to have a question if there's quality or not on USL. It's really an amazing goal, and it's really an amazing team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can tell you though that after that U.S. Open Cup loss that Austin had to San Antonio, I went into the We Are Austin TV Twitter Spaces, and it was great. It was so amazing, just the outpouring of emotion. I don't think you ran that one; it was your lieutenant. Yeah, like I sarcastically said that U.S. Open Cup didn't matter, and he thought I was serious.
Test. I loved how there was fans from Austin that follow, EPL teams, how they were comparing it to as if a Premier League team was knocked out of the FA Cup by a championship side, and they were just so embarrassed. It was really like a wake-up call more than embarrassing, because San Antonio went on to win the cup, and we're like, okay, maybe they actually were a good team.
I mean, they had a couple of players that were also from the MLS. Adeniran from the Sounders. They had Yasser from the Whitecaps. They had a couple other guys from the Sounders. And, like you look at Adeniran, he just got pulled right back up to the Sounders because he scored 12 goals in 24 matches. So I'm sure that helped them in that process. But yeah, no.
Andrew, what do you got?
All right, the ultimate fan question. 3 weeks after, or 2 weeks, whatever it is, after the MLS Cup, and I'm gonna way too early expectations of what the fans should have for how well we're gonna do next season. And I'm gonna preface this by just go ahead and put in. I'm gonna expect that Drussy's back. I'm gonna expect that we're gonna get the Norwegian guy that you were saying. What is his name?
Oh, Collins.
Thank you. Is he
It's a
Norwegian?
Peruvian guy.
There
Not to
we
be
go.
confused with the Norwegian guy, but
so
yeah.
just imagine a perfect world that those two come in and we replace Redis with somebody that can do more than a step over. And all right, so what should we expect for next year? What should we expect for next year?
We should start with Sunny this time.
Yeah. And we'll work it back this way.
To beat an LAFC squad, you're going to need more than that. They just have too much firepower. The players that they bring in, the players that might come in still for them, to be at the top of the top, you're going to need 11 starters and 2 luxury subs that can come in and change the game whenever you want to. So we already saw what wins MLS Cup, and it's a solid 11 and players that can come in and score goals and do things and make things happen. So that's what we're going to need.
That was always the thing playing against LAFC, seeing their subs who are coming on. They're like supplemental roster guys coming on. I'm like,
Yeah, how's
this
guy a
guy's also
supplement?
very, very good. And so this coming season, when we're playing in CONCACAF Champions League, playing in US Open Cup, playing in the full season, the is it Leagues Cup? Is that
Leagues
yeah,
Cup.
Leagues Cup in the summer. We need everybody to be able to contribute. And that was not necessarily the case all of this year. It was better than the year before, but I think even just today have made some steps towards that. We've got supplemental roster guys who have been starters in this league already. That's a step in the right direction, but I don't know that Austin FC fans should necessarily expect to finish second in the West with this team with the kind of schedule that we're going into.
I'm going to second that because I think it's different when you have a target on your back and other teams know what to expect when they go up against you. And, teams play up just like Austin played up against LAFC. They were a completely different team against LAFC than, say, Nashville or somebody else. So I think it's going to be the same problem for them. And, Sonny kind of nailed it right there. You have to have the right guys in place. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot harder this season.
One thing that I'd like to add on to that, good points from everybody. Something that not necessarily that I expect, but something I'd like to see for next season is more players from the academy maybe getting that call up to the first team. I don't know if it's possible yet, but there's one name that I really like. His name's Anthony Gonzalez. He plays right back. He's an absolutely gem of a player. He works so hard. He's got a call up to the U.S. men's national team, to the U19s, along with Michael Burton. Michael Burton's one more name. So if we can get some of those kids up to the first team, let them, just to see what they got, I'd be happy.
Yeah. Does anybody have a laminator in the house? I believe they have one here. I'm going to say like third or fourth in the West if signings come through and say Drewsy's back, center back reinforcements, striker reinforcements, things like that. I mean, I think I have no reason now to not think that LAFC is going to be really good, and I think the Galaxy. I think Ricky Pooch is going to make the leap from where he's been the first year. I think they're going to be scary. I mean, I think it's just going to be hella competitive. I mean, Nashville's going to the East, which is good. We think at least they're going to the East. That's kind of one more playoff spot, but I think it's going to be rough. But I mean, again, like we see once Austin, all they have to do is get into the playoffs, and then it's wild. I mean, just having two number ones in MLS Cup this year, we haven't had that since 2003. So that tells you how rare that is, right? So I mean, just it's demolition derby once you get into the playoffs, and 13 teams go home sad, one team goes home happy. So I think Austin certainly got capabilities, but they've got some work to do in the offseason. Yeah, Lee again.
Is Austin getting an NWSL team?
I hope so.
That'd be nice.
I have a lot of little cousins that are really good soccer players, and I keep telling them, I'm like, hey, y'all need to stay focused. Austin could be getting a women's team here soon. I'd love to see them play for Austin, and I just keep telling them, stay focused. Like, things could be coming. When I was a kid, I never thought we would have Q2 Stadium here, and now I think about it, I wish I could go back and be more focused, because, growing up in these areas, you don't think that the MLS is going to shine light to your little hometown, Austin. We never thought Austin was going to be what it is today and what it's going to be in the next 10 years. So I just try to motivate them and tell them, like, hey, big things are coming. Like, women's soccer is on the rise, and y'all could be the stars of next year, in the next 5 years. I just try to keep them focused.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I do want to say about this is, I mean, the striker also, especially with Theo Lloyd Hughes anchoring it, we've done really excellent women's coverage. And obviously, I mean, the Yates report, happened right at the start of the playoffs, and that absolutely rocked NWSL. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of work that has to be done there. Their internal report is still supposed to happen. So, certainly that's going to maybe cause some kind of issues with expansion, but I know that they do want to expand as a league, and I think that Austin would be an absolutely fantastic market for it. I mean, I know that there are a few other places that are vying for it as well, but it's definitely poised for growth. If you haven't watched NWSL games, they're fantastic. It was a really, really fun season. Theo and I did a podcast on my podcast a few months ago, where we created analogies between the NWSL teams and MLS teams. So go back and look at that, because there's a lot of relatability there as well. And there's a really, not to bag on the Dynamo, but it's a really funny moment where Theo was laying out like this kind of just like moribund case for the Orlando Pride, and it was like, yeah, I think you know where I'm going here. You know what I'm going to say? It's Dynamo. So, all right, go ahead.
Let me make a question. I couldn't leave without talking about Josh Wolf, right? Everybody knows how I like him, much I like him. But anyways, we as the media side had some issues with him over time, over the last 2 years, different moments, different things. I think the Eliminator is a good example of that. The F question or the BS question is also another moment that was really important. We have different people from different sides of the media here. How has been your view in your relationship with the coaching staff, more specifically with Josh Wolf?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the more personable, interviewable coaches in the league. I mean, I've really liked him. I mean, you know, obviously there were some times last year where there was some friction, and obviously, you know, they've been trying to start some things with media a little bit this year. But I think it's all part of the game. It's all kind of fun. I mean, like, there was the game towards the end of the season. I think, yeah, it was the Colorado game. I think it was maybe where it was the one where he was suspended for all the yellow cards for with the refs, and he just like he just popped into the mix zone when we were interviewing players, holding a beer, just kind of like letting loose. Like I started asking him some questions, and then everybody kind of congregated around him, and he was just it was really funny. And yeah, I mean, there's times where he's prickly a little bit, but I think that's kind of his deal. I think it's part of, you know, trying to get, you know, the whole, you know, world is against us, media is against us, that kind of thing. But I think it's just kind of a game, really. Like I've interviewed a lot of coaches around the league. I've been in a lot of press conferences, and these are among the best. I think I would miss him if he left, because there's no guarantee that you're going to have somebody that is forthcoming, that will break things down in the way that he does. You know, you have some coaches that will like say almost nothing, and it is really, really hard to get a story. Like it is not hard to write about Austin FC compared to other teams.
You also influenced his choice of wardrobe.
I did. Yeah, I did the hard work of making sure that he would wear green shirts to games, and now he's doing that. And people now, yeah, there was this MLSPA thing saying that like people wanted to play for him like even more than Jim Curtin, who I would personally run through walls for if I was a Union player, because I think he's fantastic. So yeah,
Definitely, Phil. Going back to, you know, the first season, it was up and down. Fans were happy, fans were sad. A lot of the fans, like my friend Bali, was calling for his head super early as I brought chill out. I was also
that's so Bali.
I was also part of it too. I'm not gonna lie, but you know, you really have to realize what you have, and better to appreciate a coach like Josh Wolf whenever you have him before he is gone. I think he might be going to the U.S. men's national team one day, but he's going to have his long spell with Austin FC. What I have to say about him, though, is at first I had my doubts. I mean, he's coming with no real head coach experience. He was with Columbus. He was with Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. And he was at the U.S. men's national team, also assistant, though. So he never had that really head coach experience. Gave fans some doubts because the number one thing that they're going to say is, who's this guy? What has he won? He hasn't won anything. But now season 2 came along, second place. Obviously, a lot of fans had to eat what they said. And we just have to trust this guy. I'm a big fan of Josh Wolf. I think he's a strong character. We saw what he did with Pochettino. Pochettino thought he could do his own thing. And what happened? He got shipped off. We're going to see what's going to happen to him now that he comes back. But for sure, it's Josh Wolf show.
I have a pretty good relationship with Josh Wolf. It's a funny one. He is the person who taught me not to ask stupid questions, but that if I did, it would be okay because we'd get a good laugh out of it. So yeah, I mean, I think I asked some question like, well, why aren't you guys scoring early goals? Some stupid. And he was like, oh, well, yeah, we'd like that. And I was like, but it was funny. It was funny. And I ended up actually running into him in the parking lot. And I was like, he was like, you like that answer, didn't you? I was like, yeah. Now I know what to expect with you. But no, I think he's always had a really good sense of humor. And, you know, he has like, you were saying, Phil, just been really forthcoming with information like most coaches. And I've interviewed a lot of coaches, both on the college level, USL level, and a lot of them, they just won't give you what you want to know about the tactical breakdown. And that's what I was really looking for. Like, what is the tactical breakdown here? Something I can kind of grasp and move forward with. And so, you know, he's really good after the game of kind of, you know, talking about things like that. And so, yeah, no, I think he's awesome. And I think you know, just all his ties to U.S. men's national team and everything, I think makes such a huge difference for the club. And so I would miss him too if he left. I think he's a good presence, and I think he makes a lot of great calls. I think he is fantastic with key subs. You know, there's been a lot of times that goals have followed key subs, and I think that's definitely a coaching thing. Also, the whole recruiting process, pulling someone like Driussi, knowing how he pairs with Fagundes, I think that's a coaching thing, and so I respect him.
I think it's been fun to watch him grow over the last 2 years. And I think he was like a little bit too defensive a lot of times last year. And he's put in a tough position, right? Like no experience as a head coach, no experience with the media, like being focused directly at him ever really. And so I think he's learned a lot in that regard and has gotten better about it. It's also easier when you're winning, right? To answer those questions. But he's a person who doesn't care much about like the soft part of it all. He's like, no, I'm here to do tactics. This is my job. And that didn't play very well with some of the fans last year. So like I would like to see him like grow in season into like a Peter Vermes character one day. And I think with the experience, that's kind of the direction he's gonna go. Like kind of a gruff guy who will give like a direct answer sometimes, but eventually we'll have like the gravitas and the confidence to actually pull it off, which I don't think he quite does yet.
I would say that in other countries, the media is a lot harder. They ask difficult questions. They expect answers. Not giving an answer is not good enough. They'll show up to your house. They'll show up to the practices. They will be yelling at the team if the team is not doing good. There's just way more pressure involved. And at least in my experience, professional sports is about the today. It's not about what the team did last season. He starts over and he's basically got to prove himself over and over again, because if the results aren't coming, it's professional soccer, you're out. It's here in Italy and Brazil. It doesn't matter. The game's about winning and results. So not a lot of people want to be in that position, but I think if you're signing up to be a professional coach in any sport, those are just things that you got to deal with. That's why professional sports coaches age way more, and they lose their hair and they have gray hair and wrinkles because the job is so stressful, and it's a lot of stress. But here it's a little bit, people are a little bit nicer.
All right. Katie.
Is that okay? Okay. What should we expect from MLS Next Pro in this coming season? I don't know any details, so forgive my ignorance, but like, is it concurrent with the whole season? How many games? Where are they playing? What kinds of players do we expect to see in these games? Like our supplemental guys, or will we bring in a bunch of new guys that we don't know? And also, how do we expect this to impact USL and other leagues of various levels introducing this?
Landon should start. Landon probably knows more about this. I'm thinking
So from what I understand, it's going to be concurrent more or less with the MLS season. I've been told that it's going to be like on like consistent nights of the week. I don't know if it's going to be like Friday or Sunday, but it'll be consistent schedule, kind of like the new Apple TV schedule is going to be. As far as players go, the idea for most MLS teams is going to be to push in as many academy players as you can. But I also have been told that they're not just going to put academy players in because they're there. Like those kids are going to have to earn their spot there. But the idea is to anybody who's on that team are going to be people who the front off or the technical staff believe could maybe one day play for the first team. And so it'll be college players, it'll be USL veterans, it'll be whoever, it'll be academy players. But if they don't think that you could maybe one day play for the first team, then you're probably going to have a hard time finding a spot on that team.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of more like USL adjacent. Like at one point with USL Championship, there were a lot of those number 2 teams in there, and now MLS Next Pro is kind of their own domain. I think the Rochester, New York team is the only one that's not directly affiliated with an MLS team, if I'm right. So
yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah,
It'll also give the players that are not playing on the first team a chance to get. It's difficult to. The MLS season's extremely long. I think next season will be different because there's just so many games, but it's extremely hard to not play for 2 months and then the coach say like, okay, you're going to go start for 90 minutes. It just doesn't, your body doesn't want to work like that. So if you're able to get any kind of minutes in competitive games, it's going to help the players that are on the bench. And there's players maybe like Kip Keller, I don't know if that's the case, but who need just time and experience and to play with people. And hopefully those games are able to kind of bridge that gap between like academy, which ends at like U18, to stepping onto a professional field. There's a big gap in between there. So something in the middle is going to help kind of keep that relationship together and give kids more opportunities.
Yeah, and if anybody last night looked at St. Louis City too, playing Bayer Leverkusen, that was kind of an indication of the level of what that might be, because there was a lot of those players with some of the senior team players sprinkled in.
Rodney Redes for sure can go to that team.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Captain.
He could,
I think
kick some ass in
one thing that's worth
Boston FC too.
one thing that's worth saying is that I've heard a lot of people say like, oh, like the players who weren't producing this year, we'll just throw them to the MLS Next Pro team and it'll be fine. But contractually, if they have an MLS contract already, we can put them on the Next Pro team, but they still count against our salary cap. They still count against our roster spots. And so we cannot replace them. We can give them a place to play and get minutes, but it doesn't mean we can go buy someone else to replace Rodney Redes or Kip Keller or whoever it is that we put down there. They still count towards the salary budget. So that's not necessarily a solution for any like salary cap problems.
You're like an MLS encyclopedia. This is great.
You have to have that. It's difficult to understand.
Another question, Mike. Hey.
Hey, Mike Corniola from Swoon Tower Soccer, a
Yeah.
podcast all about the boys. My question actually is about something that Sonny said about the media in other leagues is a lot more demanding of answers and demanding of results. Do you all think that that has something to do with the baby era of MLS that we're still in, right? The league's 25 years old. Historically, a lot of the media has been very friendly to everyone in the league because, oh, we're growing soccer in America together. And like, what can we as fans do to change that? And like, I mean, it's a serious thing for us as fans of the sport. How can we help make the media besides striker? Right. You've already got my $250, Roberto. Damn. Yeah. Besides enjoying the sport, right?
So your question is how to get it so media is more challenging of
Like more legitimizing the conversation among like casual sports fans, right? A lot of people will listen to a Grant Wall type and be like, well, yeah, he's like kissing soccer's ass, right? Like, how do we show that like it's a serious and
You have a good point. You have a good point, man, because we just had a MLS final and a reporter asked Kalen Acosta, a player of LAFC, a question about like if he was a player for Philly. Like somebody sent that guy that it is his job, and it was disrespectful to the final itself, the press conference, the player. But luckily for Kalen, exactly, Kalen handled that absolutely fantastic. You know, he was not rude. He just let the guy down easy, I guess you could say. But you bring up a very valid point. One thing I'd like to add on to that is hooliganism isn't the answer. I think that's lame and needs to definitely die. I think people in this league, you know, you mentioned it's in a baby phase. We're definitely growing it. We have to get more respect in the game. I mean, I see games in the EPL and there's fans just casually sitting down, just enjoying the game. And you don't have to get in a fight with the person wearing somebody else's jersey. You know what I mean? You can respect somebody else's team without getting to violence. So I think respect goes a long way in the creation or the growth of MLS.
I second that. The one thing I like about MLS is that it doesn't have such a toxic culture as you might find in NBA or NFL. I mean, it's just constant finger pointing and, you know, Monday morning quarterbacking. Can't say I haven't done it, but like, you know, it's when I think about the culture that MLS is beginning to instill, it's very progressive and it is like kind of a safe space. Now, I do understand wanting to ask the hard questions, but I think there's a way that you can do that, you know, without being offensive or a total a-hole, you know, like you can just ask the hard questions and either they give it to you or they don't. And I think anything else is kind of crossing the line and, you know, crossing boundaries. And so I'm not mad about it.
Let me add a little bit to that. And again, selling the striker, but it's not an intention for that. But when we created the striker, was a lot about that, right? Is what I tell our team every day is saying your job is to make our fans look smarter to their friends when they're talking about soccer. That's what you have to do, right? We have to educate. Don't get me wrong. We wanted to be a we are a for-profit company. We're going to be profitable one day, but our mission as a company is to help develop the sport. And we believe that we can do that by educating the community about the sport. And I think that goes exactly on what you were talking about. How can we get the casual fan involved, right? We are failing on the striker on that side, on the sense of we wanted when we created this to be the source for the soccer mom that's going to the weekend for the first time with their kids to that hardcore soccer fan, which is most of you here, right? We're still failing on that side of the soccer mom side. We have to still find out how to approach them and how to help educate that part and bring them to be part of the soccer professional community, right? If I may, I'm creating a little bit of that, but that's what we're trying to do. But we can do that better if everybody helps. You know, everybody talks about it, and we get to the point where we have a bigger audience and be able to educate people about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I just want to say that I mean, I've worked on the MLSsoccer.com site. Like I wrote there for 6 years. You know, really great people, really great editors, really great writers. Really enjoyed my time doing that. But also, yeah, there's certain kind of places you can't go. You can only kind of go up to a certain point on some things. They're very kind of guarded about some of the things that you might express. Yeah, I mean, striker, obviously, there's more freedom to do that. And yeah, like I don't want to know where Josh Wolf lives. I don't want to go to his house. I don't want to be that guy. I'm not that guy. But also, you know, there are hard questions to be asked when things are not going well. And, you know, it's you know, there've been little grumpy times, like, you know, after Austin finally got in the playoffs, you know, and GT scored the hat trick, you know, I prefaced a question by talking about the 3-game losing streak, which, you know, was one of my 10 points. I thought it was a really important part of the season that they had to overcome because they were showing weaknesses against playoff teams. And Josh is like, oh, you're mentioning the 3-game losing streak, you know, and all that. But then he got into his answer and all that. So yeah, I mean, again, I think, you know, again, to echo what Roberto's saying, I mean, I don't want this to be like, you know, hugely sales pitchy. It's like, you know, now that I've got y'all here, let's talk about Amway products, you know, or something like that. But I think having independent media places, you know, like the striker, like what we're striving to do, is about having that knowledge, trying to make you smarter by and more informed and able to talk about soccer more knowledgeably, you know, with your friends and being able to evangelize a little bit more since we're all here to grow soccer together. I mean, that's create accountability, but also, you know, to be that kind of, to give that kind of perspective. And everybody here is doing it in their own way. I mean, you know, Sonny with you know, the pregame show and the work that he's been doing in the broadcasting, you know, has been doing fantastic things. I mean, Landon and Jeremiah, I mean, they are such a great source week after week about Austin FC. I mean, Katie is doing great work. You know, somebody who has been a player as well as you know, somebody who is now in broadcasting, getting deeper and deeper into that world. And of course, Hernan, you know, getting the voice of the fans there. I mean, we all have these kind of roles that we're trying to play. But it's, I mean, it's about growth. Yeah, it's about this kind of evangelizing. We want to see this grow, but we also want to do this in this way that is responsible, that is, you know, advocating for fans, but at the same time respecting the players and respecting the coaches.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to. Hey, happy birthday, Phil!
Thank you.
I wanted to kind of keep this conversation going with the thought about growing the game, and for whatever reason, I'm always interested in like the TV numbers and stuff, and checking in on those. And unfortunately, there hasn't been a ton of growth. We'll see this Apple experiment, you know, how that goes. But I guess my question is, y'all, this is like jumping off what you're saying. It's like, it seems like MLS fans, there's not many casual MLS fans, right? The casual soccer fans, yeah, you're either crazy or you're not, and everyone else in our lives probably thinks we're crazy. Anyways, so how do they capture more of a TV audience. You know, the product is improving on the field, the
Mm.
atmosphere is better. How does that translate to actually getting people
Well, I
to
think
watch?
like the last MLS Cup, the one that just happened, LAFC and Philly, I think was like close to a combined 3 million. And it was more like English language and Spanish language households, which doesn't necessarily happen. So I think things like that, like every World Cup is kind of an inflection point. And again, like 18 was weird. I know. Like I had a book that came out about the US and their success in the World Cup as the US was not making the World Cup. So that definitely, you know, impacted the growth of soccer. And I felt that firsthand as somebody who was trying to market a book to people. But I think we'll see a big jump in 22. I mean, obviously, you had close to 3 million people tuning in to an MLS Cup that was absolutely effing bonkers, you know. And if you watch that, you're going to want to come back and see next year because, you know, everything that could have happened in that game happened in that game. So I think it's just, I mean, I think it's a little bit of a grind, but I mean, I think definitely, you know, combination, and that's kind of part of what we're banking on. That's part of why we want people to be part of this, whether you can invest at the levels that we're talking about or whether you subscribe or give subscriptions with, you know, Christmas coming up and all that to friends, you know, get more and more people kind of looped into what's going on. I think it'll grow, but I think it's just going to be a lot of work. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, NFL, NBA, you know, they've been around for a while. They've had a chance to cultivate and do like huge sponsorships and things like that. I think the Apple TV deal is huge. I think that's part of it, but I also think that, you know, there's still work to be done. It's still fairly new in this country, and it's still kind of like, you know, indie rock in the 80s and 90s. It's kind of like, you know, okay, Nirvana is, you know, going to release Nevermind. You know, U.S. soccer is eventually going to, you know, do its kind of like Nevermind moment. Maybe it'll be this World Cup. Who knows?
There's two things that we can add to that, right? That's important for us to remember. We have the first ever economically active population that has lived with soccer since they were born in the US. We can consider that US soccer was born in 94, 95 with MLS and the World Cup in 94. So this is the first generation of people that can purchase soccer, and they have soccer since they were born. Before that, I would guess a lot of people here, they were football or baseball or whatever, and they became soccer. Now we have that. So that's an important piece of that. The second part of what you're talking about is that MLS has a very localized audience, right? So you're not going to find Austin fans in New York, or let's even go to older teams. Like a Galaxy fan is in LA, a Seattle fan is in Seattle, and that has a huge impact on the viewership. Because when you're doing a broadcast, you only have that localized TAM that we call, that's a total audience that you're going to have. You go to Liga Max, you have a Chivas fans. You have Chivas fans everywhere in the U.S., and that's a huge impact. And that's a difference that we cannot try to compare ever, the numbers of audience from MLS to anything else, because that's the only sport that has that localized audience. And that's why we, again, being the marketing guy on the striker at this point, is we're trying to create something local for each one of the markets, because we believe that MLS and WSL are local products more than they are nationwide products.
I feel like you also have to hand it to a lot of these MLS teams that have some really creative branding and marketing. You know, Will Ferrell over with LAFC. We've got all right over here. So, you know, I think that, you know, if you can continue to do that, and also as someone who has a show on ESPN San Antonio where they don't love to talk about soccer, if I'm being honest, I'm the one who kind of like constantly knocks on their door and says, hey, I want to talk about this. We're going to talk about it. There's a lot of people who came to the USL final game with San Antonio FC that hadn't gone to a game before. And so I think, you know, something we had talked about on the radio was, hey, is it okay that I can be a bandwagon fan for this? Or is it okay that I can just show up and now be a fan? And I said, yeah, because, you know, so much of it is, you know, as you as the fan base also being open to people coming over, you know, like this isn't high school where it's like, you're too cool, you know, you can't be in my clique. No, we're trying to grow this thing, you know? So I think that's just another important thing. Like you as a fan, if someone's trying to talk to you about it and they say the FC and the soccer in the Austin, you know, like just be chill about it and, you know, use it as an opportunity to show what you know and what you love and why it's so cool. I think that's another thing. It's just like you got to get them hooked on the experience, and that's exactly what some of these radio guys did. They were in the bunker. There's beer flying everywhere when there's a goal scored. Drums, smoke. That's the kind of thing that gets people hooked, and that's the important part.
Go ahead. First of all, happy birthday, Phil.
Thank you.
And I think I want to start off by saying that I've been really impressed with the quality of coverage that the Strikers provided, because I frequent the MLS website, and I'm just gonna give a quick example of the power rankings, that the little shtick that they do. And it's almost laughable, because it's for the Portland Timbers this week. It's the Timbers did a Timbers thing in a game where they looked a lot like the Timbers, and they only shot on target all night, and it went in for the Timbers. It's if that's the level of what's being put out there, and then we're looking at the Striker website, I see more information just on this preview above your heads right now. That says a lot of what you guys are building here. My question is talking about growing the game, what actionable things are y'all seeing in the community that's saying that this thing is happening? And I'm gonna use I'm gonna take Q2 out of it, right? Outside of Austin FC, what concrete points of evidence are y'all looking at and saying yeah, the sport is growing here?
If I can go first real quick. I'm part of Union Electricians Brotherhood 520. And one thing that I can point out super quick, I'm going to just say this. They've been raffling off tickets at the union meetings. The union meetings are every third Friday of the month. And just hearing what kind of plans these electricians are making, you say, oh, I want to win these tickets to take my family to the FC game. They say FC, and I'm like, okay, cool, right? And I've told some of the guys, that we have the channel, that we have the pod, and they tune in. So whenever they have a question, they come by and they ask me. But just to see a community of people that's really known to be fans of the NFL mainly start to take an interest in Austin FC, because it's in their hometown and they want to take their kids. And like Sonny was saying earlier, little kids want to be goalies now more than ever, and they say Stu whenever they make a save. Just to see that small seed growing in these families in Austin, one day they're going to be big flowers, they're going to be trees, and they're going to be big super fans of Austin. So just to see that happening in communities where they have been predominantly, NFL, maybe NBA, the fact that MLS is creeping in, it just shows me how we're making it. It's happening.
I think too, look at what we're consuming in just casual media, like Ted Lasso. They were beautifully able to bridge the gap between American football and American soccer, bringing an American coach over. And, I look at stuff like that, and there's people who can quote him. I've personally quoted Ted Lasso on my broadcast, because I know that some of these people maybe watching the game might be a parent of a kid playing soccer, and maybe they don't know a ton about soccer, but they might have seen Ted Lasso because their kid plays soccer. And it's those kinds of things, infusing that kind of humor and getting people to buy into it, making it entertaining. That, and then also I look at the women's game, they are growing at an exponential rate right now between NWSL and even WNBA, across the board. I think they're really making a case for themselves. So, you see things like that, people starting to talk about women's sports. What I don't love is, usually what starts the conversation is something bad. There was abuse or something widespread, and even media coverage, they only hit major headlines when there's something terrible drama stirred up. But then, at least at the bare minimum, I think I've had more people talk to me about it as a result of it. And I think because of that, I've been able to talk more about why they should go to a game and why it's important and what it means for little girls growing up to be able to see themselves on the pitch and to be able to have that as a career and survive, and not to be having to work 3 jobs on top of playing, things like that. And so you look at that along with just the academy system in general. I think we have this wave of young people coming up, and that's the next generation of soccer. That's where soccer is going to grow. That's where you're going to have more of a casual fan once this whole generation grows up, because that's not something that we had a ton of. I mean, Sonny hit on it. When he was in college, he didn't really have that pathway right into pro. He had to go into college. Now it's different. It was the same for me. Right after college, there was nothing, and so I stopped. But now there's semi-pro and pro and academies. There's a lot to choose from, and so I think the more options we give, the athletes themselves to get in and make something happen, I think just the more it's going to spread in general. So that was a really long, drawn out response, but hope you're able to follow that.
What I would say is if you're working for MLS, you can only say what MLS wants you to say. There isn't a lot of, you can't have a voice if you're working for the boss. Because your voice, if it's not what he thinks, then you probably won't be there for a long time. Which I'm just saying in general, like if I work for MLS, I can only say what is polite to MLS. You can't really have a strong opinion about anything because they would feel threatened probably by that. So how can we give our opinions on soccer and have more people in conversations besides the people that are just holding the media, right? So you turn on, I live in Mexico, I turn on the TV, all the shows are about soccer. There's no other competition. There's no football. Everything's about the game leading up that week. People's lives, they're either in a good mood the whole week because their team won, or they're in a terrible mood. That's like how they live soccer. That's just the culture, the way it is down there. So we have a lot of room that we have to to get to that level. We don't have to be dangerous. We don't have to try and kill anybody because they lost a game, but hold people accountable. Yes. Have opinions on media. Yes. Have other platforms besides what MLS gives us. Yes. Can ESPN have more shows about soccer and people give their opinions about what they think the team's doing? I would want to know questions about our own team. Like, who thought Rodney Redis was a good player, and what are we going to do about it? Because that's a serious question that I think about, and I'm like, well, why can't we ask that question? Like, who said that this guy? I don't like talking about other players, but just for instance, like, who made that decision, and now what are we going to do about it? Like, I would want to know that. But can we ask that question? Probably not. Not where I stand in my position today. But there's
I
just,
also don't think they would give you the answer even if you asked from any outlet.
but those are the questions that are being asked in other countries. Like, a player didn't result. Like, okay, what are we going to do about it? Like, what's his replacement? Is he going to stay? Is he going to leave? Are you going to loan him out? Did we lose money? Like, we want answers, just like you would if I did construction and the house didn't turn out people want answers. Like, it's no different than any other job. So I think more opinions, and that was written is stupid. That doesn't make me want to read anything about MLS because that doesn't give me anything. I want to know why they weren't shooting, who was starting in the lineup. Like, how come our two forwards in the playoff game against Salt Lake were the only two that didn't get a shot off? Like, I want to know that answer. I want to ask him that question, and I want him to give me his response about those questions. Those are difficult questions that, at least in my experience, the coach had 20 of these in his face, and he had to answer the question. There wasn't no, I'm not going to answer. Like, you got to own up to what it is. I don't know.
Sony, we did in our Metro Soccer Summit last year. We did actually this year we did a panel that I hosted with Lexi Lalas and Glenn Davis, and the concept was: are we too soft? The media, are we too soft towards the coaching staff and the clubs, and are they too soft reacting to us? And anyways, you can go back and watch that. It's getting late already. I want to thank everybody that came out here, everybody that's online.
Yeah, thank you so
Phil,
much.
If you want to do the last round with everybody here, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, just thanks everybody for coming out to my birthday and this, obviously, and to see us all. And again, yeah, I mean, just again, with the striker, we are trying to grow it. I mean, we don't want to hard sales pitch y'all, but if you can support the efforts for the equity crowdfunding, that'd be awesome. If you are a subscriber, thank you. If you are not a subscriber, we would love for you to be one. And yeah, I mean, just the goal is to grow it and to be a voice here for all the teams, but to be able to maybe expand and tell more and more of the story of the league next year. It's been it's been a wild ride so far the first 2 years, and just been it's been an honor and a privilege to be able to help tell the story along with all of my esteemed colleagues here.
Sony, last words before we go. Anything?
Last words. Just to add to that side note, not only the coaches though, the players are held accountable in other countries too. Like, you lose a game, you're not out. You're not out on the street. You're not out signing no one wants your autograph. No one wants your picture. They don't care. They want to win the game. So not only the coaches, but the players' responsibility that every time they're on the field, they're representing the city of whatever that is, or the club or a region or whatever. And there's just more accountability.
Sonny, thank you very much. Sonny had, his school was going on tonight, and he left those kids, got people be there. He had to be there and made the time to be here. So thank you very much, Sonny,
Thank you for inviting me.
to make the time. London.
Am I answering your question?
No, just your goodbye.
You're just saying about
words.
everything so we can drink.
Couch soccer stuff, but yeah, nice to see you all.
All right.
Just a few quick final thoughts on, MLS media. I used to work for United Women's Soccer, and I understand being on that side of it to where you want to be completely neutral, because if you start choosing a team or saying too much about one team or giving somebody too much attention, then that starts league-wide issues. So just wanted to say I understand the MLS perspective there and wanting to be nice and cordial and whatever with everyone, including other media outlets. But again, it's these local reporter beat writers that get those really nitty gritty details, because we're here at every game, we're behind the scenes, we're in the press conferences. That's where you hear all this stuff. And unless MLS is going to send someone out to cover every single game for, every single team, then that's kind of hard to do. So luckily we have the striker doing that. And
Yeah,
thank
they
you guys.
they used to, and they don't anymore. So yeah, so that kind of tells
So
where things are going.
luckily we have the striker.
Yeah, no, on that is that last year we had striker. We had the four of the best teams in the whole world, right? I think we had Barcelona, if I'm not mistaken, PSG, I think it was, and then Portland and Houston Dash. And the striker was the only media outlet from outside of Portland that was at the stadium at that tournament. So we're trying to do our best.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me here, Phil. Happy birthday also. One thing I want to say on the question that Paul had earlier, I want to send a shout out to the Austin FC team, the front office, whoever's making these small fields all around Austin, these little futsal, these fast-paced cement fields, because I know that the kids in these neighborhoods, because at one point I was a 10-year-old kid in these neighborhoods, the hood, as some people might say, but seeing all these things happening in Austin is just really cool, and I'm happy to see it happening for some of the kids younger than me, because I know that it's going to be a big help for them. So that's one thing that I see in Austin FC changing. And other than that, it's been awesome covering the league. It's been great. The team has been growing at an enormous rate, and I look forward to hosting Twitter Spaces and being outside Q2 Stadium. If it's cold, rainy, or hot, we're going to be out there talking to the fans. Thank you.
Phil West, happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. One last quick thing too. I mean, I know that we've been focused on Austin FC as we all do, but also we were insane and we were doing a whole bunch of World Cup you to take a look at that. We have group previews now up for all 8 of the groups. Our staff took on various roles to do that, so all the groups are covered. But I went in and I did mascot fight reports for all of the 8 groups, taking the 4 and seeing like which mascots would actually win if they were in fights. So you can also check that out in addition to all the good soccery knowledge. So so there are a lot of colors and there are a lot of birds we found out in looking at this lineup this year. So
Who would win in a fight, a color or a bird?
A bird would be the color. Yeah. So definitely there's a few good ones in there. There's a few that are legitimate. I think Cameroon is the Indomitable Lions, and that is like a really cool name. Plus they are lions. So that generally does pretty well. But so we have all that. So just look for the World Cup tab in our menu, and we'll definitely be pointing towards it. And of course, that all starts Sunday, which is insane. But that is the world we live in. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
Take care. Thanks. Have a good night. Let's have some drinks.
Yeah, I wanna finish. We have a USL podcast that we do weekly, and we always finish our USL podcast with a phrase that I really like is always support local soccer. Thank you guys.
2
To you. Happy birthday, Phil West. Happy birthday to you.